Now, this next question comes up whenever we look at NAS devices here on the channel, and it's something that I wanted to talk about a bit. Kilted John 1000 wants to know, why are NAS devices so expensive when the specs are so basic? And if we take a look at the Synology 1019 Plus that we've been playing around with here for the last 2 weeks or so, that one sells for $650 with no storage inside of it at all. Yet its configuration consists of a quad-core Apollo Lake processor that was last year's mini PC chip, and you can often find devices built on that processor that run Windows for about, $150, $200 or so. They're not that expensive, certainly not $650 expensive, and I wanted to give you some insight as to why I think NAS devices cost more. Now, first of all, a NAS is an appliance. It is designed to do essentially one thing, which is to work as a mini storage server on your network. They're getting a lot more usable. In fact, I've got a video coming up this week to talk about some of the cool things you can do with some of the higher end devices. And this is the one I've been using for the last 4.5 years. This is the DS415 Plus, which is running with a pretty slow Atom processor built inside, but that processor is good enough to do the things that this NAS device does. And at the time that this came out, this was certainly costing a lot more than the Atom-powered laptops and mini PCs that were available at the time. But here's why I think you pay a lot more. Now, on screen right here are the release notes for my Synology 415 Plus. You can see that the first release of the operating system for that device is 5.04519 from September of 2014, 5.5 years ago or so. And if we fast forward to today, the top of this page, and it's got a lot of stuff in between the bottom and the top, you can see that I just got an update about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, which brought up to date the operating system with a few fixed issues, and sometimes you'll get a security update or something like that. The bottom line here is that this thing has been updated almost every 2 weeks or so, sometimes more frequently, ever since I turned it on, but there was only one price to pay to get in the door, and that was it. I don't have to pay a monthly fee. There's no additional licenses for the things that I use. Now, they do have some things that do accrue some licensing fees if you go beyond the 1 or 2 that they provide to you as part of the deal. But even those license fees typically are not monthly. They're one time and you're off and running with it. And I think it does cost money to maintain support for older products, especially this one, which hasn't been sold in a number of years, yet they are still providing very frequent updates. And it goes beyond just security and bug fixes. You actually get new features too. So let's take a look at some of the things they've added to my device over the years. One is, of course, Hyper Backup, which is a much more robust backup system than what the drive originally shipped with. So that was a nice update there. Docker is something that wasn't on my drive initially, but is now, so I can load up containers doing Linux and other things. And what you're going to see here is I'm not using a lot of these features, but nonetheless, they're there if I want to. The Synology Moments application is a Photos app that largely mirrors how Google Photos looks and feels, but it's hosted on something that you have direct control and ownership over, so that's something that wasn't there initially. The whole Synology Drive system, which kind of replicates a Google Docs and Google Drive experience with a web-based interface here, was not on my drive initially, but is now. In fact, you'll see a video a little bit later this week where we demo how this works just like Google Docs does, especially when you're doing collaborative document work. You can have somebody in a Word document here at the same time you are and see what they're editing. Likewise, their spreadsheet application here functions in the same way. You can even do charts and all this other stuff. And again, none of this stuff was there when I first got it, but it is now, which is kind of a nice value add for something that I didn't expect to get these new features from, yet they're all in here as it continues to update. Now, at some point, the updates on this thing are going to stop. I'm not sure exactly when Synology cuts it off, but for now, I've been very satisfied with the fact that, again, I paid one amount a couple of years ago, and I'm still seeing that device supported rolling forward, which is not something we see all the time from device manufacturers, especially Android tablet makers and sometimes Android phones. This is a nice, refreshing thing to get frequent updates like this. Now, to go back to the original question, I've also found that there's some value to just paying for something that's going to work all the time, which is why I like to call these things appliances. They are dedicated to a specific task, and part of the cost of entry is the fact that this thing is just going to work and you don't have to spend all that much time futzing around with it. Now, I could, of course, build my own NAS if I wanted to. There's a lot of great open source software to do that, but then I'm on my own for supporting it and making sure it stays up to date and everything. That Synology NAS in the closet just does it all in the background, and it's one less thing that I have to deal with. I woke up one day and said, you know what? I'm in the business of making videos, and I need to be focused on that, not focused on keeping everything else working. So yes, I could save money by not using Apple computers, for example, and not using some of these NAS devices. But again, I may have to spend more time to keep those things functioning. And for me, the value is certainly there to pay a little bit more to know that I'm going to have those things essentially maintained by somebody else. And for me, that works. And for folks that it doesn't work for, you do have a lot of options now to build your own and make it exactly the way you want.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Chris Allegretta, the Four Guys with Quarters podcast, Tom Albrecht, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.